Welcome, everybody, to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and with me this afternoon is Rick Torres. Rick, welcome to the Three Gun Show.
Hey, thanks for having me, buddy. I'm glad to be here.
Dude, it's great to have you. So we've got quite a few mutual friends here, and several of them are like, you gotta have Rick on, man. He's got an interesting path to share. So I'm pumped to get to have you on here today and share it with the Three Gun Show audience.
Good deal. Yeah, I'm ready to go, man.
Right on. Well, so Rick, let's start where we always start on the Three Gun Show. Let's get to know you a little bit. So, who are you off the range? What do you do when you're not shooting?
So off the range, I'm from Delaware. I'm a law enforcement officer in Delaware, a full-time SWAT guy, which is kind of what drew me to the sport of three guns. So I could just looking for ways to better train and help myself, and then help the team that I'm a part of. And then also, I'm an avid hunter and fisherman, outdoorsy type guy. I live in the country, so.
Yeah, you had to drive to the local internet portal to do the show here.
Yeah, yeah. I live out in the middle of nowhere. It's about as far as you can get in Delaware, anyways, to the middle of nowhere. So the internet connection isn't all that great. Yeah, a little dry.
You know, it's kind of funny, like being like a guy from the West, where when I think of like out in the middle of nowhere, like it's the green spot on the map in Colorado, but Delaware like looks so small, like you can fit that in like one of our counties.
Yeah, it is. It's very small, and it's actually getting more populated. We have a pretty big beach culture that's moving in. That's changing a little bit, but I'm lucky enough to still live out a good ways. So.
So, how long have you been in law enforcement?
Uh, like I think I'm in my 17th year now.
Oh wow! So, is that what kind of made you head toward three gun, like proficiency in different platforms, or
Oh yeah,
what was?
yeah. I mean, because shotgun doesn't play as big a part, but definitely pistol rifle for what I do. I have them on me every day. So yeah, and three guns really helps a lot. Really helps a lot.
Yeah. Do you find that you're now trying to get like all your coworkers to come and shoot with you?
Well, yeah, I actually have one that I do now that comes with me, and then I do our firearms training. So I set a lot of, not always, but I set some stages up. Guys are competitive, so they like doing that. I don't know if many of them would jump in the way that I've jumped in, but they definitely like to compete and watch. And they all when the Three Gun Nation was going, where we had the shoot offs and all, they all enjoyed getting on there live and watching me, and then they all know Greg, so it's pretty cool. Pretty
Yeah.
neat.
Did they ever give you a hard time, like that's going to get you killed in the streets, like the old saying?
Yeah, I was Three Gun Rick there for a while at work. It's it's crazy. I think it's gaining more acceptance as more guys, that are in three gun, that are also LE or military, and they're bringing things back, and it's helping. It's just helping guys to be safer and be better. But yeah, you get the old school people that still feel that way. So shooting.
Yeah. So do you feel like it's like the trigger time, and then your mind can easily transition from competition back to work?
Oh yeah, yeah, and so like how I got into this, I was shooting a law enforcement military sniper match at Fort Meade. They have every year there in Maryland, and that's where I met Greg Jordan. Didn't know who he was, and I shot a stage. Me and my partner shot this one stage really well. It was kind of a three gun type stage, and everybody's coming off their high five and, hey man, you guys killed that. It was a bounding sniper stage, and they're like, man, you're probably gonna win it. And then Greg got up there, and his partner just followed him, and he all fanned at everything. Of course, everybody else went prone. He beats us all by like a minute, and I'm like, who is that guy? So they say who he is. They're like, oh, he shoots three gun. So they say his name and all this stuff that I didn't pay any attention. All I heard was three gun. I'm like, I've been wanting to do that forever. They don't have it around here. Where does he go? And they're like, I don't know. Go talk to him. He's a nice guy or whatever. So that's what I did. I went up and introduced myself, and that's the first question after I introduced myself. I asked him. I said, hey, look, man, is this going to mess up my tactics like at work? And he just said, hey, if free gun or any of this stuff mess up your tactics, you have bad tactics. So that's held true, because it's even though we run by stuff, and competition at work, you switch right back into a different mindset. So. And that's all it is. The difference between competition and what I do at work is just a mindset thing. That's all.
Right. Got it. So now when you started shooting three gun, did you look at it as like a game like you do now, or were you thinking like, oh, this is hardcore training, and you kind of hid behind the dump barrels and shit like that, or what?
Yeah, well, my first video, yeah, it was pretty. I still have it, and yeah, it was pretty tactical. So yeah, I definitely was clearing behind barrels and walking down there pretty methodical. Uh, so I didn't know what you call it. I didn't buy into the gaming part right away, but then, we're all competitive on competitive. So it didn't
Yeah.
take, it didn't take long. And then I was full bore. So,
Well, so you've got a competitive background, right? So, boxer growing up, played some baseball.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
sports and competition like a deep seated thing in you?
yeah, I would say it definitely. Yeah, it definitely is. And they all help. Like boxing was my main sport that I was decent at. And, um, you know, so what you take from that on the good side is, no one's going to get you out of bed to do road work. There's a lot of stuff that you do on your own, which is in this sport. There's a lot, no one's going to make you up go dry, make you go dry fire or do the things that you have to do. You kind of have to have that in yourself. The one thing that I really like about shooting that I've never got from any of the other competitive things that I've done is, I could show up to a fight a little out of shape. Maybe the other guy's a little quicker or whatever it may be, but you could still will yourself to victory. And shooting's just not like that. Shooting is all preparation. You get what you deserve. If you prepare better than the other person, as long as your mental game's okay, which if you prepare correctly, then your mental game's probably good anyway, then you're going to be fine. But if you don't prepare, then you have no hope to go out and beat a Daniel Horner on your first match, no matter how much you want to will yourself to it.
Right.
So that's the neat thing about shooting that I found is just it's the mental side is amazing.
That's a really great point. And I think so. I make a lot of like parallels to obstacle racing, which is something that I did for a long time before I started the show here. And a lot of that was, grit. It was a mental game of just pushing yourself just to keep going for the next, 3 miles and next several obstacles and just not giving up. And yeah, there's none of that in three gun. It's like you can not give up all you want. You're still gonna suck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the big difference from those types of competitive sports that I did before. That I had, that's something you have to get a handle on if you want to do the sport and do well at it. So.
Right. Well, I like what you said there about no one getting you out of bed to do road work, and yeah, three guns the same way. It's an individual sport, so you don't have like a team where you have like an appointed time or you need to be there at 3 p.m. and it's we're going to be running bleachers today or we're going to be dry firing or that kind of stuff. So how how do you have like the motivation to train? Is this I mean, did you start out that way like as a child, or is that something that was ingrained in you, or
Yeah,
what is it that motivates you?
I think for me, so even before I boxed, I was into BMX, like flatland freestyle stuff when I was a kid. I rode a bike like most kids enjoyed their bikes. I rode my bike until it broke every piece off of it, and did stuff and all that kind of stuff, and did traveled around a little bit. Did stunt shows at like local bicycle shops and things like that when I was like 13 or 15, and then boxing came, and then we could talk. I got into chainsaw wood carving after that, and so everything I've ever done, I guess I'm just one of those people. I don't know why. Maybe when I started out young, like if I make a promise to myself to do something, then I'm going to do it. Otherwise I won't. So because I don't want to be terrible at it, I guess you'd say. So the work to me, just like even shooting, I couldn't stand the dry fire when I first started, and now I've actually learned to embrace it. But it was literally pain in the beginning. I'm just one of those people. I thought it was boring, like really, really boring, and I didn't like it. So I've learned to love it, I guess you'd say.
Right. Well, okay, so let's talk about that real quick. So BMX freestyle. So I watched Rad and BMX Bandits when I was growing up, watched all that stuff, was like totally pumped about it, and ate a lot of shit and got a lot of road rash trying to recreate those tricks. But so I mean that to me seems kind of boring too. Like you're in a parking lot by yourself at the schoolyard just trying to figure it out and working through that kind of stuff. So what was it about dry fire that was so boring to you? It seems like you kind of have a background in boring
Yeah.
alone
Well,
solitude pursuits.
yeah, that's an excellent question because okay, you say you take a trick on a bike, then you're doing it over and over, but eventually, or I shouldn't say eventually, maybe within that day, maybe it's an hour, you're going to see a result. You may get it, you're going to nail it one time. The thing with shooting that I found, especially with a pistol game, is you put all this work in and you get frustrated and you think, man, this isn't happening. This just isn't going to happen. It's just, maybe it's me. Maybe I just can't do this. And then one day it just sneaks up on you. Either a buddy comes over or that you notice something on the timer and someone's like, dude, you just shot that really fast. And then you do it again, I'm like, okay, like I said, dry fire's paying off. So until you see that, and that takes a while, there's a lot of frustration there. So it just seems like it's boring. Okay, I pulled the trigger and the sights didn't move. They want to do it again. Okay, I did it again. It didn't move. Like, what am I doing here? You don't realize that it's just those thousands of reps that add up to where you can't get it wrong anymore. But that's hard to grasp in the beginning because you don't see the results right away. It takes, in pistol shooting, that might be 3-4 months before you start to see a real result. Where, the BMX stuff, like I said, an hour, maybe a day at the most, you're gonna nail that trick. It's kind of, to me, that's more instant. This is real work.
That's a good point. Like, there's not really that immediate payoff, like with rookie mistake.
Hold on a minute. Something's going crazy.
That's the Apple ecosystem right there.
Yeah.
So exactly. With what were we talking about? Training an immediate payoff. So like for example, like I guess weightlifting is like a pretty good example. It's a lot of like dropping stuff and not being able to lift it, and then all of a sudden there's this payoff. But there's that long lead time up to it of continually bumping up against that ceiling and not seeing any kind of results. Do you think that's because there's 30 years between the BMX experience and the dry fire though?
It could be. I think it's just different.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different. It's just a different thing, I guess you'd say.
Different reward system.
It's just a different reward system. It's just one's quick and one's. And I think, I guess, with the shooting, those skills, especially that speed skill with a pistol, takes such a while to develop. At least for me, because I didn't have a background in it. That you just never know when it's going to come. It's almost like if you go on a diet and you're losing weight. You're never the first one to see it. You're always like, oh, this isn't working. I'm starving myself for nothing. And then, like I said, 2 months down the road, a friend sees you and hadn't seen you in a while, like, wow, man, you really look good, buddy. It's kind of that kind of thing. That's what dry fire is to me. So once you start seeing the results, then I think you embrace it more and it's a lot easier. But in the beginning, I would say that first 4 months, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this stuff, but I really don't see what these people are talking about.
So then why did you stick with it?
I think when I got into this, I just really, I made a promise to myself. I literally said, hey, I want to at some point win a national championship if I can in shooting. I always thought that would be an awesome goal. And that's what kept me to it. And then I think, the other thing that helped too, I lived close to Greg. So when I first met him, he was just training for the first Three Gun Nation Rumble in the Range that he won. So his first national championship.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to see that. And so not that I wasn't going to put the work in anyway, but I think one advantage I had was I got to see the amount of work that it was going to take to catch someone like that, to catch someone like him or like a Daniel Horner, where it's easy for people to say, oh, wow, man, that guy, I've heard, Greg's nickname is Optimus Prime. It's easy for them to say, oh, that guy's just got a ton of natural ability, and that is what it is. But, I saw the 3-foot piles of shotgun shells on his place that it was just amazing. The amount of rounds that he put down range to get ready for that match was just amazing. And I knew right then, I'm like, well, I believe, if you get what you deserve. If I'm not working that hard or harder, then I'm never going to catch that guy. I'm never going to beat that guy. And wouldn't hope to. So, I'm a realist type person. If I didn't think that I wasn't willing to do that, I would just made a goal for myself that, hey, this will be a hobby where I'm just going to have fun at, and that'll be it, which is hard for me to do. I made that promise that, hey, one day I want to be able to where I can, run with that guy and beat that guy. So I got to work like him. That's where that comes from. So then you just have to do it if you're going to want to get there.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool advantage to have is, first of all, like a resource like Greg really close, but to also be able to see the type of work that he does, which for most of us, that don't live near or train with Greg, it seems like it's done, behind the scenes and we only see the result in matches, right? So that I think does often lend to the misplaced perception that people have like a natural ability that they're not actually out there busting their ass every day to do it.
Oh yeah, you see any of these guys that are finishing well? I'm telling you, man, they're really working hard. And even for Greg, like Greg, the best thing he ever did for me early on, he didn't really have the time. I think he appreciated the fact that I was so motivated to want to do it. Maybe he saw a little bit of how he was, and I think he appreciates someone that's going to really work. So he introduced me to Howard Thompson up in Pennsylvania, is like a local guru up there. It's helped a ton of people, and he actually helped Greg get started. So he introduced me to him, so that way Howard could kind of get me going on the basics while Greg was trying to win a national championship there. And then once I got to the point where I really needed to fine tune stuff, then Greg had more time where I could work with him. But even having that, if you're still not willing to put the time in, it's going to be tough. And we were just talking about it. There was a bunch of us at the 3-man 3-gun there in PA at Dean's match. I think it was like Tommy Smith and Garrett, a bunch of guys, Riley Hart, that I hadn't seen for a while, that shot that 3-gun nation there. And just they haven't been around that much this year. And they all were kind of like, at the point where they're like, hey man, we're right up there in that top 20, top 10. We can shoot there. We're all good shooters, but to get to that next level, like to knock off Dan and Greg, is just going to take a level of commitment that, a lot of guys, families or whatever, just can't get to. And after a while, when you start checking off boxes of skill sets, you kind of see where you come from and where you got to go. And it's tough to get to that last part's tough. So.
Well, did you find that it was easy to get to the level that you're at now?
Well, I wouldn't say easy, but I mean, I can tell you how I did it for me, and what worked for me. So what I did, I have a sniper background from work. So the long range, I had most of that down, the basics of it down. The speed at which you have to engage targets in 3-gun was a lot different for me. I had to learn that, but that came pretty easily. The shotgun, I'm in a mecca for duck and goose hunting. So I've done that ever since I'm little, or since I've been a little kid, guiding and things like that. So, which is the reason why I can't hear now. So if people talk to me on the range and you think I'm rude, you guys just get in my face and yell at me, that's all. Or if you've RO'd a match, the first thing I usually say is, hey, put that thing like right next to my ear. But the shotgun, yeah. So shotgun for me, other than the loading and stuff, wasn't too bad. But the only pistol I really had was, I did some police pistol combat stuff, which is bullseye. And so I knew how to make an accurate shot, but the run and gun, all that stuff, hitting spots, that was so foreign to me that that was really a big gap. So what I did in the beginning, where I kind of messed up in the beginning, I wouldn't say messed up, but everything's a journey. You don't do everything exactly right. I looked at the pistol. I'm like, man, I really got to get on pistol. So the speed, these guys shoot pistol at an amazing speed. I need to do that, all the time. That's what I need to focus on and master that first. Well, that's going to take the longest. And after about 6 months, I figured that out. Like, yeah, this isn't going to come quick. So what can I do different to get the most bang for my buck, and kind of pick the low hanging fruit for, to make me better quicker. So, and then I like I said, I had the benefit of bouncing stuff off of Greg, but one is like, first of all, loading your shotgun. So, I knew I could shoot a shotgun. I just need to load it. So I started practicing shotgun, and I got a little overboard with that. And at the end of the day, it's just looking at the times of some of your top guys. Look at the times of the top guys and what are they doing. And if you look at a load 8, most of the time, guys are stuffing a load 8 at match, not on hot YouTube time, at a match, they're right around 4 seconds, right? So shot to shot, they're right around 4 seconds. So I learned a lesson there because, I was that guy that was trying to go faster. You get down to 3 seconds, then you're 2.9, then you're 2.8. What are you really gaining? There's so many skills in 3-gun. It's time to just set that aside and then get to the next one. So I'd say once you could get to where, you know, if you can do like a 3.5 all day long, then you're going to do 4 in a match. And then there's enough skills out there, you know, move to something else. And then make sure you can, you know, obviously you can do that standing, moving quickly, hitting spots, or, you know, speeding up or slowing down or backing up, whatever it is, you can nail that. And once you get that, move on. And then the next thing I saw was transitions, gun to gun transitions. You know, that's something where it's not shooting related. When I looked at my times, especially shooting against Greg, sometimes we train, he was putting 7-8 seconds on me before we even started shooting. So I'm like, wow, there's definitely some time to be gained there. So I literally took that, was my next thing. And it took me, you know, training pretty hard. It took me like, I'd say 3 or 4 months to where I could get my times down to where the top guys are. And they're all right around 2 seconds, depending on the target. You know, if you're going shotgun, say to pistol, and the pistol target's like a 4-yard paper, then, you know, you might be a 1.8. But if it's say a 4x10, you know, further out, maybe closer to 15, and then maybe you're a 210. You know, maybe it takes you 3/10 of a second longer for that sight picture, but you're going to be right around 2 seconds. So you need to train that until you can get it. And I mean, like on demand, get it, because those guys do it on demand. Which every one of those little skills you check off helps you with another one, because if you can't get your transitions down, or you're getting hung up and you have to hit a spot, you know, to where you need to be there to shoot, you're not going to hit that spot because you're paying too much attention on a transition. And you don't want to be losing time on that transition either, because you're just giving up non-shooting time. So that was like the next thing. You know, I checked that off and just make sure I got it down to where I mastered that. And then I think it was like my second year I shot FN. I finished, I think I was like 10th on the long range stage. I was really excited. There was a bunch of other guys from up around the PA area I shoot with at the local Isaac Walton club there that all finished pretty good too. As far as like close to the top 10, I think Kevin Downing, Buddy Knight, he's a good shooter up there. We all finished pretty good that year. But then Daniel and Greg put 20 seconds on us. They put it on everybody, right? So like, man, this I went 1 for 1. So I told him after, I'm like, hey, dude, I went 1 for 1. Where's 20 seconds? So then he's like, well, let's shoot some long range. So we shot some long range. And then I think I was like on a setup, I'm like 9 seconds. He's like, buddy, you were 9 seconds there. I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, you got grass growing around your feet. Let's go here. Let's shoot. So I look, and then, you know, the top guys, you need to be down around 5 on a setup, and then they're transitioning target to target. If you look at those AMU guys, someone like Joel Turner, man, he snaps fast. So he's, you know, if there's one target at 200, and then maybe he's, you know, has to transition even across the field, like at the Wyoming match, he's going to be around 3 seconds, man, getting to that next target and getting a shot off. So, you know, you need to practice that. You need to get that, because just going 1 for 1 at some point is not gonna cut it. So then you work on that and you master that. And that's all I do is I just went through and I've just checked off stuff, rather than, and that's the way I chose to do it, rather than just saying, okay, I got all these skills and I'm just going to keep working and maybe one day they'll all mesh together. You still have to work on stage stuff, you know, when you're practicing, but those are the things I break down and just try to master piece by piece. That's the way I've done it. It's worked for me for the schedule I have at work and things like that. So
now, do you have like a big list somewhere of like the skills that you need to master?
Like, yeah, I have a list, and some. Oh yeah. Some I knew, you know, some I would already I could sit down and think about like those, and then other ones like the long range, or, you know, like the transitions, I just had that from the start. But then like the long range, that's one that came to me. You know, I learned that from going over my match video and looking and saying, okay, where did I lose time? One of the last things that I started working on, because I didn't have any USPSA experience, and I actually started shooting some USPSA matches recently, was the actually always hitting my exact spots. So, you know, I'm in position. If you watch Greg, Daniel, and those top tier guys, they make the shooting easy. That's one of the things. They seem to always be in the right position, and their guns always up on target at the right time, to where a lot of us, if you overrun a position, well, then you're leaning back, and then we're actually sometimes making shots that those guys probably couldn't make either, because they're not shooting off balance or some crazy position because they missed it. They're always lined up on the target perfect. So the shot they're making, most of us could make. We just have to be able to put ourselves in position to make the shots, which is easier said than done when you're dumping guns, picking guns up, and running around like we do. But So that was one of the last skill sets, like for this year that I've been working on, was trying to nail my positions a lot better to make the shooting easier.
Yeah, I found myself doing that a lot as well, like overrunning positions and having to take like a half a step back, like, oh, now I can't see the target I thought I would.
Yes. I mean, that's so, yeah, I have a list of skills, and that's, for me, that's what worked. I know different people have different approaches, but that, I just felt it was better for me to just pick one and then work it to a mastery level and then move to something else. Is that, it can be frustrating in a match, because I would literally look at a match, and let's say there was a match like a three gun. A lot of your three gun nation regionals had those base stages where you had to hit spots. So when I was working on gun transitions and some of the other things, that I was working on at home, and then I'd still have to go shoot that regional, I'd get there and go, oh man, this is going to hurt, because I know I'm not right where I want to be with all the footwork yet. But the problem with this sport is, I think you just have to look at it like a journey, unless you're going to be able to do it as a professional 8 hours a day. You just have to look at it like a journey, and just check stuff off, and stay positive, and keep working, and appreciate it for what it is.
Well, that's a good point you bring up about, not being able to spend 8 hours a day on it. What does your training schedule look like? Like, how many days a week do you train? How much live fire? How much dry fire?
So, yeah, I used to do more dry fire than I do now, and there's two reasons for that. One is, I also did some chainsaw wood carving earlier, and I did like 15 years of that. Like, I was really, really into that. So that was really hard on my hands. So I can only tolerate so much dry fire for it. I started having like some problems with my hands, like carpal tunnel issues and things like that. So I backed that down, and I'm a lot smarter for what I need. And I also learned that some of the books I got were really good. Steve Anderson's book and some of the other book, they were really good. But I think that sometimes they don't translate as well to three gun, because when I would really dry fire some of those pistol drills really hard, I just found like it messed up my flow for a three gun stage. Because a lot of times in a three gun stage, I mean, if you look, like, it's just like a nice, the top guys are just flowing right through there.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much now downtime where there's not shooting. It's just kind of pop, 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 maybe a little bit of transition, and pop, 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 and then they're done. There's not dead time. So there's a nice flow, where some of the USPSA drills, I found like I was snapping and trying to push these part times so much that when I went out on the range, it was fine if I set up a certain drill, but then when I tried to actually flow through a stage, I was too like jerky, and it just didn't work for me. So the dry fire that I do is more of the transition stuff, gun to gun, kind of like what you see Keith Garcia putting up. There's good drills that he puts up a lot. Gun to gun transition, make sure that's all smooth, and seeing good sight pictures with that. That kind of stuff is more, I get more from that. And then the loading the shotgun, I just check that box off every once in a while with the loading. I don't load anywhere near what I used to. What I've been doing lately for me is, this year I really I've shot a ton of pistol. I normally would only shoot about 12,000 rounds a year pistol, and this year I'm on pace to shoot about 25. I just kind of went crazy. And some guys might not even think that's crazy. I heard some guys shoot 40, 50 a year or whatever, but for me, it's been a lot.
Sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah, trying to load and all that. It's really been, but I would say I've had some breakthroughs this year as far as like sight tracking, my grip. Grip for me was really a hard thing to get down for this sport. I was always either trying to overgrip the gun to control recoil or whatever, and it just seems like something clicked this year where my sights are tracking a lot better, my grip's gotten a lot better, was shooting all the rounds. And that's something that was a recommendation from Greg. He was like, hey man, just at some point you're just going to have to shoot a bunch of rounds. So that's what I did. And so it's more live fire for me. The problem that I have that gets frustrating for me, the way my work is, to get called out, I can't control that. So that's another thing we were talking about at that three-man three-gun. Some of the guys were talking about their jobs and what they had, for work. And I said, man, I always hated, I'll train, I try to train at least 4 to 5 days a week. And then if, I'll do that maybe 2 weeks solid coming into a match. And then I'll get called out literally like every day before I got to leave. And I just feel like I just wasted, a bunch of money on shooting because, it just seems to me like once you go about 4 or 5 days out, it seems like you're just not right where you were if you keep shooting right up leading up to a match and stay tuned in. So But you just got to deal with it. But yeah, I try to touch I've heard Bob Vogel say, he tries to touch a gun every day. Keith Garcia, I think, said that, try to touch a gun, do something every day to make your shooting better. And I try to do that in some way. Even if that's just 5 minutes of indexing my pistol. I found that there was a lot of times in a match where, say I had to lean and I came up, if my sights weren't there. If I'm standing straight, I do a lot of dry fire, like indexing, just making my sights come up in a line. They would always be there. But whenever I had to lean around some weird position or crawl through a tube and 3-gun and come out with my pistol, there would always be that little bit of searching there because I never trained that. So I've been doing a lot of dry fire where I'm just, no matter what I do with that pistol, when I put it up in front of my face, the sights are there. So that might only be, you say I only got 5 minutes for that day. That's what I would work on. And then if I have a couple, 2 or 3 hours, whatever for that day, then I'm going out on the range and I'm going to do live fire. And I'm one of those people where I'm blessed. I live out in the middle of nowhere and I have my own range, and my neighbors are far enough away that they don't care how much I shoot. So I'm blessed there, and I take advantage of that.
That's pretty awesome. So on your range, what kind of distance do you have? What kind of drills do you usually set up?
Yeah, so I have, so my range is probably, I have it set up to where, like, long distance I can shoot 300 yards. That's as far as I can get. I own 21 acres, so I can stretch it out about that far with the way my property breaks up. But then my main part of my range is it's like 30 yards by 60 yards. And I would say I have a berm around more than half of that, maybe 3/4 of that. I have a berm around. It's almost encircled. So I set up, what I try to do is I have a place where I set up just small drills, just quick drills. A lot of times on shotgun, like getting ready for a match, I'll shoot one and then I'll have a cone set to where maybe it's just a short distance. So I want to load my 4, load my 8, and then shoot at that cone. And then maybe I'll set up another one where I have to actually move, 10, 15 yards. Because what I find is sometimes on a load 4, if I have to move a short distance, I do it like a pistol. I just literally grab them and throw them in there and then take off, to that spot. Where loading 8, if I had to move a good distance, if you did that, you're taking too much time. I found when I tested it on timer. So I check all that stuff out on what I set up on, like, little short courses. But one of the other problems I was having with matches is, at least for me anyway, when I train a bunch of that little stuff because it seems like you get more out of it for your bang for your buck. But then I would get to a match sometimes, and like Blue Ridge or some of these longer matches where they have longer stages, I don't know if I was just losing focus or just wasn't completely into it the whole time. Then I would have something where I would mess up. And if you want to run to the top, you can't mess any one thing up. So you have to execute your plan perfectly. So then I would actually, as it gets closer to a match, what I'll do is I'll set like longer stages up that are going to be closer to the times that would probably be in a match. So that way I have to keep my focus. I adjust my focus to staying in it longer. That's been helping me or working for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like we just shot the Wyoming Governor's match 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and that, I think the stages they set up were about like 30-second stages for the top shooters.
Yeah,
and that's much different than, like, say, a Blue Ridge stage where you're on the clock. What are the timeouts, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that?
Yeah, and then your top guys are going to be probably a minimum of 100 to maybe 150 depending on the stage.
Yeah. So I mean, that's double, triple, 5 times the stage time.
Yeah.
And so that's 5 times the amount of concentration that you have to normally have, right? So it doesn't seem like a whole lot, like, oh, you're going to have to concentrate for 150 seconds, but when that's 5 times what a typical stage is, like in a club match or maybe even in a practice session. I never thought of it that way, but that kind of matters. Like, you got to practice or concentrate for a long time.
Yeah, it really does. And the mental side, the focus is, for me, like, really the last piece that I need to work on. That's kind of where, for me, like, where I think I've been stuck where I'm at. I was finishing top 10 there for a couple matches, and then now it seems like I have the times to finish easy top 10 or higher, but there's always something, that 2 stages that drag me down, and I end up, it seems like 20 is the number. Every match I end up 20th here because of some focus issue that I have, and it could just be something little. So, this is a journey. So I've focused on all those little things that it takes to shoot well, and those have all come together for me. But now I got to focus on, for me, is is actually the focus, and that's to execute my plan, see my plan, and execute it perfectly every time. And it's amazing what goes into that plan. Like just at Wyoming, I walked up to a stage there and didn't have my 30-round mag, and I didn't want to be the guy to go, you know, can you hold this and hold up everybody? And I was just like, I had a 20-rounder on there. It's kind of my old crap mag, and I thought, no big deal. The R was like, "You good?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And I wasn't even thinking that, you know, it's going to take more than 20 to finish the stage. So that didn't pan out for me too well, but that's all part of it, you know. And I think that's so now practicing, you know, after Wyoming, going back. So now my practices are going to be, you know, I got a lot of those skill sets down now. So, you know, I can go back to transitioning and check that off. If I'm right around 2, then I'm good. Table pickups for guns. If I'm right around 2 seconds with 3 steps back, you know, or whatever, I'm good. Transitions with rifle and all that, you know, I can check that quickly. And then the bulk of my time, what I'm going to spend on now, is probably setting up a stage, especially when I first get out there, even if it's small, and literally walk through, you know, have a pre-flight checklist for myself for what I need to come up to the line with, and just do it in practice like I would in a match. You know, check my belt, make sure I got everything I got for even get close to there, make sure my guns are right, make sure my magnification is on the right power, do my walkthrough, I'll probably take a few minutes and visualize it, just like if I was waiting for guys to go, and then I'm just going to run it, and I'll probably set it up about 5 times, and I want to run it 5 times clean, with, you know, perfect execution. So that's probably what I'll be striving for now. And I think hopefully for me, hopefully that'll be, you know, the last piece to help push me to where I want to go.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're talking about like the stages, setting up stages and running it well the first time, how much emphasis do you place in practice on that first run versus getting it perfect with repetition?
Well, that's a good question, because I think that's, you know, I think that's where my deficiency is, and I think that's why when you look at like what's happened with me in the past year, where, you know, I was able to get to where I could shoot pretty well and finish up there pretty good fairly quickly. But then over the past couple of years, I've kind of stalled, and I think the reason why is I had to take a look at how I was training, and that's what I was doing. I was literally just checking the box off for these skills, and I'm just going out there, and I didn't care about the first run. You know, I just, all I cared about is, could I get my transitions to 2 seconds, or, you know, whatever it may be.
Like what was the best run, right?
Or can, you know, and maybe not even the best. Yeah, it was the best run, and were those runs holding it too? So I wasn't paying attention to that, and might have taken me, you know, each of those practices 5, 6, 7 times before I started getting to where I was at. Now, eventually I mastered them where I could do them on demand, but the problem was I never really held myself to that. So that's where you know, you always got to look back, and you got to do soul searching to be honest with yourself. And that's where, you know, and I talked to Greg about it. I'm like, buddy, what's going on here, man? I'm putting all this time in, and I'm stuck at 20. You know, it just seems like I'm shooting stages where I'm 8th and I'm 5th, and, you know, maybe a 13th, and then all of a sudden I'm 56th, and it's like, what the heck? So I looked at it, and, you know, one of the things he was like, bud, you know, how are you, you know, how's your mental game as far as how you're training with focus and all that with your runs? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just trying to run fast. Yeah, I break it down, and that's what I mean. So I look at that, and that's my plan going forward, is to actually get away from that. And then at the beginning of that training is to hold myself accountable for those runs on that first run, just like it's going to match, and then accept that. And I'll probably start recording them, and you know, maybe the next day I'll leave the same thing set up and run it like a match the first time, and make sure that I execute the plan, you know, perfectly. And if I don't, then I'll look at, you know, what did I do? Did I cheat on my visualization? You know, what was it? Or is it some skill set that's fallen off that I need to revisit? Whatever it is, I just want to get to where I can hold that focus, or walk up to that line, turn it on, turn that focus on, and keep it, and execute that plan perfectly. Because really, at the top level, that's what those guys are doing. They rarely ever mess up. So
yeah. Now, do you think that you have like the best stage plans going in? Like, do you have like a knack for stage planning, or have you learned stage planning? Is that one of the things you've checked off the box?
I think I could be better. I mean, I see a guy like Dylan Easley, man. That's a cerebral cat right there, man. That guy, he puts a lot into that. He's really good at breaking that stuff down. as far as like times and things and how that works, I could say I could get better at that, but being able to walk these stages with Greg has both helped and hurt me at sometimes. In the beginning, it kind of hurt because I was bound and determined to run them exactly like he did, knowing that even if I ran it slower, I probably still couldn't execute certain skill sets at that level, and I probably wasn't ready. But I still tried it anyway because that's how I learned what I needed to go home and train. Uh, so that helped and hurt. Now, I think now that I can execute a lot of those, it's helping because I see the flow that those top guys like to keep, and I train that way. And I think eventually it'll play into the skill set that I'm building and will help me for my stage planning. Because and an example I can give of that was we were at the Three Gun Nation regional in Minnesota, and there was a stage where a bunch of top guys were on a squad with us, and they all decided to shoot this one stage where they were going to run to these different spots and shoot it. And then Greg likes to keep a flow, man. He just kept his feet moving the whole time. They weren't moving very fast. He actually ended up covering a little bit more ground than everyone else, and he shot it that way. And everybody ahead of time was like, there's no way that's going to work out. And then he literally put, I think, 16 to 17 seconds on everybody, even the top guys on that stage. I shot the same plan. Didn't look the same way. Because I couldn't perform. I couldn't at that time shoot shotgun. It required him to shoot shotgun at about 25 to 28 yards on the move between the barriers that you had. So you couldn't really miss. You'd have to stop your feet. And I just wasn't ready to execute at that level. So it didn't go well for me, but for him, it showed that flow, if you can execute it, is it's a game changer, and you got to be able to do it. So, I mean, for me, that's one of the skill sets. I went home and I'm like, okay, I'm going to check this one off. I set shotgun targets out at like 25 and 30 yards, and I set a barrel up to where I would have to start moving. And if I didn't shoot it at a certain time, I'm going to literally get into the barrel. So it's forcing me to get a sight picture, get it steady, and then get the shot. And I just did that over and over, back and forth, every which way, until now it doesn't, I can make those types of shots. Task Force Dagger had those shots on one stage, and a year ago I couldn't have done that, and I didn't even think twice about it. So that's one other thing. I just take the notes and check them off. But I think for stage planning, all I try to do is maximize the shooting. I think that's the key. If you look at the top guys, that's what they do. They maximize the shooting. Anything that's not doing that is not helping you in your stage plan.
Mm-hmm. Hey, a friend of mine and I, we started on the same day, shooting 3-gun at the same match, and then we kind of became training partners over the years. And we used to have like constant, spirited discussions about shooting on the move versus posting and shooting. And his thing was like, well, I can run, as hard as I can to that position over there, post and shoot. And I would try to shoot on the move coming into it, and I was new, so I would miss nearly as much as I would hit as well. But our times would end up similar. And his contention was always that, like, look, like the timer doesn't, or the scores don't lie. Running and posting is the way to do it. But I think, like, once you get to a certain level and at the highest levels of the game, like, that goes away. Like, the only way to do it is to not stop moving.
Oh yeah. I think I agree with you, and I agree with what he's saying, because you take a guy like Task Force Dagger, I think Kyle Soul shot this one stage. I can't remember the stage. It might have been 3 or something. There was some shotgun there, a lot of moving shotgun. I think his time for me, and there was some rifle involved there, but I think if you looked at the shotgun, he might have got down there about the same time as me. I took a really brisk walk. I ran when I needed to, but I took a really brisk walk and just loaded and shot. And some of those targets were out there a good ways, and just shot all the way down, shot through the Texas Star, where he was like, man, I can't do that. I just run. And he was young and he can run. He ran, man. He ran, hit his spots. He'll do the same kind of thing sometimes Dylan does, where they just haul butt and then shoot, and it can work for them. But I can't, the one skill that I can't yet do is I still can't move over the ground with a shotgun as fast as like Greg can. And I think he's just a little bigger. I think the shotgun doesn't move him around as much. I've tried because I even see Daniel, and Daniel doesn't cover the ground like Greg does, but he's like I said, he's a bigger guy. But man, when he really takes off moving with a shotgun, anybody's ever seen him do it, unless you're gonna shoot and move, you're not keeping up with that. I don't think you could run and stop fast enough. You would have to be like an Olympic sprinter to keep up with that. So I think shooting and moving is the way to go. It's just, at some point, yeah, if it's going to work out better for you, and you could still get a good score, then fine. But I still wouldn't stop training shooting and moving because, yeah, I think if you want to get to that upper level or win a national championship at some point, you're going to have to be able to shoot and move aggressively.
Through stages. Did you ever have a problem with moving with aggression, or is this just something you're natural at from your experience in other sports? Sorry, there's that natural word again. Something that you have a lot of experience in from other sports.
Yeah. I think it helps and hurts. So there's been times where I have another guy trained with Todd Sindelar who's dabbled in a little 3-gun, but he's a USPSA multidiscipline grandmaster. He's been a top level for a long time, and he comes over and shoots every once in a while along with Greg. And those guys are always laughing because there's times where you do need to shoot and move aggressively, but you also need to kind of just flow as you shoot. And that's the problem sometimes for me with my boxing background is, as if I see something and you tell me to move, then I don't want to like whip and move fast because I'm used to moving. Where he's like, buddy, you just swung by that target like 3 feet, just nice and smooth, right to the next target. So I would say it's helped and hurt. I'm light on my feet, but the movement for fighting is different than the movement for shooting. Like you would never step your lead foot, and cross across your body in front of yourself for fighting because you would be off, you'd be way off balance and wouldn't be able to punch back and wouldn't be effective. So for me, I didn't move that way until I saw all the top guys moving that way. And then I tried it. I'm like, oh, wow, it's a lot easier to shoot this way. And then it's a lot easier to draw because you keep your hips with you if you're going to move to the left and draw. So I was like, wow, that's something I need to think about. And I actually did have to think about it to move that way compared to the discipline that I had. So, yeah, I guess I'm light on my feet. I can move in that aspect, but I have had to tweak some things. That's for sure. So I would say that some of the shooting and moving aggressively the background's helped me, but some of it's still at the highest level. Those guys the problem is I said before, you get what you deserve. They put a ton of work in to get to where they're at, to gain that little edge over everybody. And if it was easy to get that little edge, we all would have got it by now. So that that little bit that Greg can still move over the ground faster than me that's not an easy gap to close. I've been working on it, been trying it, but I've been shooting. I saw Jerry Mitchell one time said, you want to split faster, shoot with a shotgun, shoot bill drills. So a little guy like me, that actually helped. I'd shoot bill drills with my shotgun onto a piece of steel and just see if I could keep it on there, with shooting it on time. And then I'd turn that into doing a bill drill on the move with the shotgun. And yeah, that can get, especially when you start really pulling the trigger, that can get a little crazy, and it teaches you, where your body needs to be. So, eventually I'll get it, but it's just amazing to me sometimes those skill sets that those guys have, and the amount of work that it must have taken to get to where they're at. So,
right. Well, and Rick, you said that you started in the sport at a more mature age. 40 years old. You said you started. So at that point, you've got like a pretty big advantage, right? Because there's that old age and deception sort of thing, right? So you know your physical abilities. You have probably a lot of self-awareness, spatial awareness from your sports background, stuff like that. But what were some of the disadvantages that you had in the sport, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, I think the biggest disadvantage, my daughter, she was a teenager. She just turned 16 now, so you got all that going on. She's got sports, and she's learning how to drive, and that's something in itself. That's the scary.
Boys.
Yeah, boys, all those things to fight off. You got all that. You got life going on when you're older. It is what it is, as opposed to if you're teenagers or younger. And then the other thing is just the injuries too that you pile up if you're doing other stuff. I know like Josh Fralick, I think he has his background's in MMA, but a similar type background. I guarantee he's probably got some aches and pains. It's just, so I see him with the knee, the tendonitis on his knee, the little bands on his knees and things like that. So the problem then is I have the discipline sometimes to push myself a lot harder than than maybe than I would have even when I was younger. But I know now that I have to go to work the next day, and that also I don't want to, like with my hands, if I end up just completely hurting my hands, I may not be able to shoot, or I may have to take a layoff for a while. So it just forces you to be smarter about how you train, and then because of time management, and then also because of your body. But it can be done. I can tell you, there's days where my knees or whatever, I'm just like, if I'm 44 now, so I've been in this sport like 4 years, I'm like, man, I really don't feel like sprinting today and stopping really hard. I just don't feel like doing that. But, when you're 19 or 18, that you don't even think about that kind of stuff. It can be done. It's just all a matter of what you want to do, and maybe a few Advil.
Yeah, so those days you don't feel like sprinting, you just like get out a bar stool and shoot from there, or what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always stuff, you can practice your flat-footed transitions or whatever, but movement is a lot of the sport, and it is what it is, and you have to be able to move aggressively when you're not shooting, because that's just downtime. So I learned that too. I watch videos and I'm like, man, I really thought I was done shooting there, and I felt like I was sprinting to that next spot, and I'm watching this video and I wasn't. So then you have to go out and you literally have to just fire that one shot, and then run to the next and see what the time was, and maybe look at a video or whatever to see where you can push off harder, or come in and get your butt down and come in better for your shooting position, so you're ready to shoot. And after about 10 of those or 15 of those, you're like, wow, this this was like I feel like I'm back in school on the playground or something here playing tag. Your knees are killing you and everything else, but yeah, it is what it is if you want to do it.
Yeah. Well, and when you have those life priorities and other responsibilities that get in the way of the fun that is shooting, the competition or the competitiveness, and etc., you have to prioritize. And so when you look at, say, like the list of skills that you checked off and like how you've progressed in the game, how would you prioritize the skills required for 3-gun?
Well, I would prioritize. I would say, I mean, if you look at your matches, then you're gonna make your money long range. If you can shoot a good long range game, that's where you're going to put real time on people in the beginning. I know it helped me. So I would definitely, I would see that as something you need to dial in as soon as you could. And then, like I said, then just go after the things that you can get a lot quicker. The bang for your buck or the low hanging fruit, where like the gun transitions, things like that, because they would fall in next. Get your long range game down, get those transitions, get your setups. Learn wind, learn your holds, know your scope exactly. Get all that stuff in and out, so you know what kind of target. If it's this size, what forgiveness you can get away with on a hold. What kind of bracket you can do on wind. You can get books on a lot of stuff. I would delve into that and get that down. Even if you go shoot a PRS match and hang out with some of those guys, even though it's a little bit different game, the actual learning, to get dope on your gun and good zeros and all that kind of stuff, those guys, that's their thing. So they're going to be able to help you there. And then start attacking that stuff that you can get, like the weapons transit, the stuff that's free that you can do in your basement or whenever. Get your gun transit, picking guns up, putting guns down is a lot of what we do. So start nailing that. Get that down to those times that it needs to be around that. You'll see if you start putting stopwatches to people, or using the Shot Max coach or whatever, and putting guys' videos in there. It's usually around 2 seconds. So that's another thing. Don't buy into thinking something crazy because you saw some hot YouTube time that's what you have to do. See what it is in a match, and see what the top guys are doing in a match, and then get it to there. Because if the top guys are doing a match, let's say, they're dumping shotgun and going to pistol, and it's 2 seconds, and somebody on the internet, I'm not picking on anybody on the internet, but let's just say some guy put some hot time and he's like at a 1.6, and you spend the next 6 months trying to chase that 1.6. You didn't really need to. It was just time wasted. And there's so many skills that you have to learn a 3-gun that you don't want to mess around with that too long. So do that. And then I would say, so rifle, then your gun transitions. and then actually just picking them up, picking them up too, like picking them off a table. You don't realize how quick those guys pick up and acquire a target. So, see what you need to be for rifle, see what you need to be for shotgun, and then pistol. And if you're going to do that in dry fire, have a vivid picture of what it looks like for whatever target you're going to simulate in dry fire for whatever you're going to see outside. Because that's where I messed up, and I would just get too quick with what I was doing inside, and then I would have so many reps by the time I got outside to do a live fire that it just wouldn't transfer over, or my timing would be way off. So I think it's more important to keep that time. If you're outside and you can do it live fire in 2 seconds, then, I'm not a big guy that if you're inside, it's like a second and a half. I know some guys are. I think you should still find some kind of target or some kind of sight picture that's going to keep you close to that, and you would work down as close as you can. At least for me, I found that it was really throwing my timing off outside. I know you have to push sometimes, you do, but I think most of your time you have to spend for what you can actually do, because in 3-gun, you have to shoot your 90% when you go to those matches. You have to shoot your 90%, and you have to be smooth. Otherwise, we all know what happens if you don't. So I think if you're training too much dry fire, it'll come. I think, and I was the same way. I would want this tomorrow, so I would push all these times, and then I go out to the range and it wouldn't work. Where it's worked better for me if I just accept the smooth and slow and let it happen, and it still happens close to the same amount of time. It's hard to explain, but I'm a lot better. I master it a lot quicker, I guess you'd say. So I would check that off next. So rifle, then your weapon to weapon transitions, and then table pickups. And then also after that, would be loads. So even your pistol, it's not that important. Most of the time it's a wash, but just make sure that it doesn't take away from your attention. Make sure you can load that pistol quick enough that if you have to hit a spot, that thing's in there, and that you can look down to wherever that spot is you're moving, and you can hit the spot. If it takes you so long that you can't get that pistol load in there, that you're overrunning your spot, well, you need to work on your mag changes and your reloads with your pistol. I don't think you need to be a grandmaster level, maybe pistol reloader for 3-gun. I just don't see that. There's so many other skills in there, but loading your shotgun, that's another one. You need to get that down. And we talked about that. Don't, load 8. You don't need to be at a 2.6. You just need to get to where you can do that 4-second load 8 in a match or somewhere around there, and you can nail it. So in dry fire, usually I find that's around a 3.5. If you can load that thing in about 3.5, moving around your house, you should be at 4 in a match, as long as the nerves or whatever, where you're at in a match. I found for me, like when I first started, the nerves, especially like loading or things like that, affected me more than they do now. So I'd say if you're new, maybe you want to practice down, maybe like around that 3-second mark, because you're going to be a little nervous. So your dexterity in your hands, you probably, hopefully everyone can relate to that. I mean, if not, then that's a good thing. But I know for me, early on, some of my dexterity went just because I was nervous and thinking about everything.
Yeah, shoot, that'll still happen to me, man. I've been shooting since 2011. Like almost, we're coming up on 7 years here that I've been shooting 3-gun, and I'll still be stuffing a quad and be like, why is my thumb shaking? And then I'll have the thought of like, why am I so focused on my thumb right now? And then it's like, oh, back to the stage, Dave. But the nerves thing is like a serious thing. So did you find you had like the craziness that goes with the timer going off when you started shooting 3-gun? Or
I think I did, and then like everybody else, I did, because there's so much going on there. It looks so easy when you watch. You're like, wow, that's cool, and it doesn't look that hard. I should be able to, I could shoot this gun and this gun. That's cool. And then the buzzer goes off, and you got to pick this one up, put this one down, load this one here, shoot this one here, and it's just all a blur. So I think that adds to the nerves. But then I think for me, I don't necessarily I don't really have the nerves. Sometimes for me, I almost need the pressure to make myself focus. I've almost been that way. That's for me, like walking up to that line without the mag, or sometimes those little things that I'll do, like missing a target. It's because I'm not, for lack of a better word, aroused enough. I need to walk up there where I'm, in it all the time. like everything's on the line. I don't think I get nervous like shaky nervous or anything like that really anymore. I know when I shot that Three Gun Nation shoot off, that's probably about when I was on TV in Florida. That's probably the most pressure I felt at a 3-gun match. But I don't know. I just whenever I get up there to shoot, I think when you're thinking so much about the shooting, if you're really going to be able to hit targets at the speed you need to hit them, you don't have time to pay attention to anything. The only pressure I've ever felt last year, I met good old Jeremy Gresham, who you know, and yeah, brought me on to Team Armalite, and so I had a sponsorship, and that's been really cool, and just a neat ride in itself, to be able to represent those cool companies and just to help them, and then the help that they give me to be able to do more in the sport. But it also brings pressure, but it's really just pressure that you put on yourself. People talk about it all the time about sponsors. They don't so much care about your place; they care about how you represent the product and all that. But when you get up to the line that first year and you got that jersey on, you can't help but think that people are, for some reason, are watching you, or expecting things out of you. So I think you had that pressure there. So last year I kind of went through that, but then this year, not so much. It doesn't. I don't really have that. Doesn't bother me, I guess. I maybe my work background helps a little bit too. So.
Yeah, as we were talking there, I was thinking probably the boxing background helps too, because it's not like you're getting punched in the face when the buzzer goes off.
Yeah. So far, they haven't created any matches like that. I don't know. Plan one in the future, maybe some kind of gladiator match. But yeah, right now we're all pretty good.
Yeah. Well, Rick, you were talking about dry fire honesty and how you had a problem with your live fire when you're dry firing so much. So can you dig into that a little bit deeper and kind of describe the problems that you were having when you did come actually get out on the range?
Yeah, and I've heard Daniel Jurasek. I shot with him in Blue Ridge last year. He's a good guy, man. He's done really well in the sport, and I know he's not a big proponent of dry fire. So it was always neat to hear his take, but I don't know if he had the same issue as me. But it just seemed like, I bought Steve Anderson's book. I think I had the Ben Stover book as well. Bought a couple of those books, for dry fire, just to come up with different drills. And most of them are geared towards USPSA and making GM and USPSA. So you try to transfer them over to 3-gun, for pistol or whatever. But what I've noticed, and I think this is where I ran into problems, what I've noticed since I've shot the first couple of USPSA matches, I hope USPSA guys don't get mad when I say this, but it's
dude, USPSA guys get mad at everything.
It's not that I don't want to say it's easier, because the skill level there is unbelievable. But at 3-gun, you might have a 50-yard gong, or you might have like 4x10s. And I've watched a bunch of USPSA, and you just don't see 4x10s, and you don't see where you're going to have to shoot the 4x10s necessarily on the move or anything. There's just different. There's little skills that are put into 3-gun that test you in a different way, I would say, than a USPSA match. So you're dry firing to make these, classifiers or whatever, these different dry fire drills that they have, or to do well on a USPSA stage. For me, it just seemed like when I would do that, and then I would go out and try to mix, I always try to keep my 50-yard target, my AC zone 50-yard target out there. And I try to work that into every training, because I feel like you can get rusty at that, and that's something you need to be on demand. So I'm always going back and forth. I always keep those 4x10s. I actually keep some 4-inch little pieces of angle that sometimes you shoot with a shotgun, but I'll actually keep them for pistol targets as well, and put them out at different spots, because you see those matches, you got to be ready for it. So it seems like in 3-gun, you actually may have to go faster, because you don't have to shoot A zones. So on paper, you actually have to be quicker to some degree than you would in USPSA, because you just got to cut loose. But then when you got to put the brakes on, you really have to put the brakes on. So I think like the USPSA matches I've shot, I'm still trying to shoot A zones, so I'm seeing a pretty good sight picture. And then when I switch to that steel popper, it's not that big of a change to where, if I got some 3-yard paper I'm running by, I'm just seeing the end of the gun, and I'm just cranking on it. And then if I got to hit a position, stop, and shoot a 4x10 at 15 yards, man, you got to really see some sights then. If you're, and a good trigger prep. Really prep the trigger good, see a good sight picture and get on it. And I found that dry fire, I wasn't, anyway, from the dry fire to the books that I was using, I was doing all this quick stuff, fast, pushing times, looking at the timer, adjusting. And it just seemed like then when I went out and shot my normal 3-gun stuff, it was a disaster. You know, I was quick on the paper, and then I get them 4x10s, and I'm shooting quick, but I haven't, you know, I'm not even scaring them. They're still standing there. So that's when and it took a while, and I started to notice, like, hey, this, you know, I need to dry fire. I need to manipulate this weapon, but I need to be maybe a little smarter about what I'm seeing in dry fire. So when I come out on the range for a 3-gun match, it's going to transfer over. So I just changed up targets. So I would change the sight pictures of what I see. So I went from more of just your basic IPSC target with maybe like a simulated popper, things like that, to where I'm actually using, you know, I still got maybe a USPSA target, but then like a little small piece of tape to where I'm going to have to see a clear focus to get on it, where it feels insanely slow inside, you know, when you're clicking along in your dry fire, and then all of a sudden you got this target that I'm actually trying to hold like almost like a light switch on to really have to prep the trigger and get on it in dry fire. But I found that when I go back outside now, I'm able to shift gears a lot better for a 3-gun pistol. So that was a struggle I had. And you know, early on, you don't know these things. You know, you don't. It's all trying to figure this out, which is actually part of the fun. I think for me, that's a lot of the fun. Is you know, I go to Greg for a lot of stuff, but you know, I don't bug him all the time. You know, when I really get stumped on something, I go. But I really, part of the enjoyment of this sport is just figuring this stuff out and figuring what's outworks for me and how I get there. So that was one of the learning curves for me anyway in dry fire. There might be some people that maybe don't notice. I know Josh Freilich, he likes a lot of dry fire, but he's shooting an open gun, so maybe it transfers better. I'm not sure. You know, it'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, that's true. He shoots a lot of USPSA as well, but he also shoots like a shitload of dry fire. So maybe it's and
he's using a dot. So I don't know if that, you know, if those drills transfer over better for a dot gun, you know, for the 3-gun skills. You know, it seems like it does because he's been a big proponent. But like I said, Daniel Jurasek, he's not a big proponent of dry fire, and I've never got the chance to talk to him and ask him why. But maybe he ran into some of the same things as I do, or I have, where it just some of that stuff, the USPSA stuff anyway, doesn't transfer as well.
Well, so, Rick, you seem to have like a really good awareness of the community and the, you know, like the top guys in the game and what they're doing. Seem to spend some time studying them and breaking down their game. How do you do that? Is this like all live at matches, or
yeah, I'm
do you stalk their Facebook pages, or what?
Yeah, I'm definitely a stalker. Yeah, my wife was like, "What is wrong with you? You've watched this person for an hour now, and you keep rewinding forward and rewinding forward. What are you trying to get from this?" Yeah, I watch a ton of videos, and it's funny too because our Greg and our wife know each other, and they were talking one time. She goes, "I know, that's all he does is watch Daniel Horner, this, that, and the other." And my wife's like, "Well, that's all he does is watch Greg, back and forth." So yeah, I think that to me, I'm a visual. Yeah, I'm a visual learner. You know, if I watch someone do something, then you know, it's more so than just reading in a book. If I can watch you do it, I kind of figure it out, and then I can do it. So I'll watch Facebook pages. I'll listen to 3-gun Chelsea. If I hear somebody, like if I hear a drill or something they're doing, then I'll try to find that drill if they didn't shoot it, or maybe someone else shooting that drill, or especially matches. I got the whole 3-gun Nation stuff taped, and I still go back and watch the progression of certain guys and even the sport. You can see where Daniel early on was one of the only ones really shooting and moving like he did. And then Greg figured it out, like, hey, I can't just stand around here and get this done. I have to start shooting and moving. So you see that progression there. So that's what I would do. I'll watch a guy, especially if a guy's like got a knack for something. I'll watch him, and then I'll time it and see what the times he's getting, and if it's working for them. You know what I mean? And if it's not, sometimes I'll even pay attention. I'm like, okay, here's this guy. He's hammering this, but you know, maybe he ran it so hard that's you know, the rest of it didn't work out. So you know, you can learn there. I like to watch anybody I can, man. I'll watch them on a stage or secretly video them on stage, and then go back and break it down. And to me, that's the enjoyable part. Like I said, that's the figuring it out and seeing what they're doing compared to me. I think last year at Blue Ridge, I think Tim Yackley smoked the stage, man. It was like in Cowboy Town. He put some time. He put some time on everybody. And I was just curious. I'm always so curious. Like, what did they do? And it's always amazes me when you watch them shoot. It's like, wow, you think they would be running with their hair on fire, and they really didn't. He just was more efficient than some of the rest of us on that stage. But I got to see that. So it was neat to break down compared to what I did, and then, okay, this is where I lost this time here. I wasn't efficient here or whatever. And I just stalk them.
Yeah, you mentioned Tim. Tim is fun to watch. Like he definitely doesn't do a whole lot. He doesn't ever look like he's really trying that hard, but he executes really well, and he has like conservative stage plans, and he just executes really well.
Yep, and that's what those guys do. I mean, he's inching his way up there, man, to where he's getting at that very top level of the game. And if you watch, that's what Greg and Daniel do. Daniel's probably one of the only ones that, if you watch enough video of him, that he can actually like break out of that and really turn it on and really move and make it work out for him. And I think that's just from his tremendous amount of experience, where Greg just kind of kills you with that boring, perfect execution every time. He's kind of getting that same way, where he's kind of that's it, man. He doesn't do anything crazy or spectacular. He just doesn't mess up, and that's easier said than done. But that's what you need to do. And Daniel Jurasek, if you watch that guy, he's kind of the same way, man. It doesn't look like he's running around with his hair on fire. Actually, sometimes you watch him, it almost looks like, how did he shoot that in that time? But he hits his marks, and he executes a stage plan perfectly, and that's what it comes down to. And that's, like I said, that's what I'm working on now, and that is definitely easier said than done at the top level, because you can't leave anything, and especially if you're shooting to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Bunch of fantastic shooters that you've mentioned there. So, Rick, want to talk about one last topic before we let you go and get on with the rest of your day, and that is planning to win versus planning to complete the stage. And I think that's kind of an interesting topic. It's something that you've discussed with a friend of ours, and I want to discuss it here. So, what is the difference between planning to win versus planning to complete the stage?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that was a big jump for me. So in the beginning, you're just trying not to get DQ'd.
Yeah.
You shoot a major, and like you get done the first major, it's like, oh my God, I just got done this whole thing. As complicated as it was, I didn't get DQ'd. Hot dog. So, but you're developing stage plans at that point to where, let's say it's a slug target, and then it's just shot after that. Early on, I'm going to load, depending on how far the slug target was, at least one extra, maybe in the beginning, maybe two extra slugs. And then you figure that could be 2 to 3 seconds on stage. And then I might have to load again because of that. But I didn't even care. I don't even care as long as I hit my slug. That's all I care about. I hit my slug. And then even though I'm loading, I have an extra load in there that's going to cost time. I'm shooting my stage. I executed my plan. And I found that it was a lot easier to execute those stage plans perfectly because there were so many things like that worked in. But then when you want to get to the next level, when you're going to shoot to win, then you have to plan to win. So if you're going to plan to win, you have to plan for success, and that means executing everything perfectly, which means you're going to hit that slug on the first shot, and everything else is going to be bird. You might have slug on your belt as just in case if you had to load, but you definitely do not want to do that. You're going to have to pull up and make that slug shot on the first shot so that you have the maximum amount of bird, and most of your stage designers will make it that way. That way you don't have to load your shotgun again. And that's the big difference, and that is the big jump in where guys could maybe finish, maybe you could finish, I think I could finish like around 30th planning like that. And that's probably was a lot of the time in finishing in 30th. I was shooting pretty well, but I was planning to complete the stage, not win the stage. Where when I started shooting to win a stage, there's no room for error, because now if you don't get that slug, now you actually have to go back and load a slug or two. You're probably going to load two just because of twinning it. So now you got two. Now you got one to burn. Now you've screwed up your bird. So now you've you've probably made the stage worse than if you shot it your old way. You know what I mean? Where you planned it to start. But if you want to shoot to win, that's what the top guys are doing, and that's how you're going to have to shoot it. And that's a big deal. That's like another jump for guys to be able to do, and that's hard to do. I'll tell you, because when you get comfortable finishing pretty decent at a match, it's going to be hard to plan like that, because you might really fall off on your first match, your first couple, until you can start to pull that off. But it will tighten up your training, because when in your training, you may not be paying attention to that slug, but I guarantee you, when you start shooting matches like that, that slug is going to mean something, even in training, because you have to nail it. So the focus is going to ramp up.
Right. So when you're talking about the next level, like you said, you're kind of been hanging around in the 20th spot for a lot of matches here. What are you working on going forward here that is going to take you to the next level and get you that goal of a national championship?
Yeah. So for me, I checked off most of the skills. I know what those guys can shoot at. You can always be faster. You can never be fast enough, but I can always be faster those skill sets. So I'm keep working on them. But for me, it literally, for me, it's just the focus. It is making sure that I can execute that winning stage plan, shooting to win, perfectly. And I have to do that not once, but if there's 10 stages, I have to do it 10 times. And that's the next piece that I need to chip off, and that's what I'm working on right now. And that's what I was telling you. My strategy for that is setting up a stage. I'll take a day, I'll set up a stage, I'll figure out a good par for that stage. And then once I figure out that par, I'll come out that next day fresh. I'll treat it like a match. I'll do a walkthrough, do my pre-flight check, make sure I have everything. Just like I would in a match. I'll probably take 3 or 4 minutes and visualize it like I would in a match before I get ready to go. Turn my focus up, and then I'm literally gonna shoot that stage, and I want to be on that par time, and then I'm gonna do it again. I'll take the time and set it up again, and I'm gonna do it to where I can do it. I want to do it 5 times. On everything I do, I want to be able to do at least 5 times, if not more, and execute it perfectly like that. And it's been a little rocky here in the beginning, I could tell you, but I've gotten a little better already. So I think within the next 6 months, if I can keep training that way, keep my skill set up, then I think good things will come. So
awesome. All right, Rick. Well, a couple last questions here before we let you go. And first one is something I asked all my guests, and it's, where do you see the sport of 3-gun headed?
Where I see the sport of 3-gun headed? That's a good question. I think it seems like it's getting ready to kind of make a transition here, maybe a little bit of shift. You see with like prize tables. I think the prize table thing has peaked, and now you see there's kind of a debate out there with the random prize table, or how should we do the prize table? So I don't know what that's going to do, or how that's going to affect how guys shoot. I think the top guys shoot to win, but at the same time, if there's going to be prizes there that they can take to sell or whatever to buy more rounds or more ammo, then they're gonna maybe shoot a match that where they can do that. Me personally, I'm going to keep shooting matches, that I like to shoot, that I think are neat matches, cool matches, that are also the most competitive matches. I like, like Wyoming. I like the fact that everybody showed up there. I want to try to find matches where everybody's going to show up, but at the same time, they're going to be good matches. And, you hear the rumor mill of what everybody likes. So I think what's going to happen probably is, I don't think maybe it can sustain itself. Good, man. Maybe everything keeps going the way it's going, but I think some things maybe will kind of fall off. Certain matches will fall off, and then other matches, maybe we'll gather even more following to where more guys, more of the top guys go all the time. Because I got to tell you, even when I first started, man, I still wanted Daniel Horner to be there. I finished 60th, and I still wanted him to, because I just want to see where I was at compared to whoever the top guy is. So I think hopefully moving forward, it seems like they're doing some educational stuff. Guys are getting into it. They're doing a lot like these youth camps, and hopefully keeping kids into it. Because the only downside, the 3-gun really, man, is financially. It's not a cheap sport to get into. You got 3 guns to take care of, 3 guns to feed ammo to, and then all the training and practice and all that. So even I can imagine, if I had a kid into it, that's he'd almost be begging them to get into soccer or something. But it's good that we got, you see a lot of people out there getting their kids involved, bringing kids and all that. So hopefully it's going to be around, man. And whatever shape or form it is in with the prize tables, or I even talk about guys not liking shotgun. You hear the two gun thing, people talking about two gun or whatever. I think the shotgun just adds strategy, really.
Yeah.
So, hopefully it keeps
Since you
growing.
brought it up, Rick, I want to get your perspective on it. So, law enforcement officer use a carbine and a pistol on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily a shotgun. What are your thoughts on the shotgun?
For three gun?
Yeah.
Well, I think it adds. I think I in the beginning I was like, okay, whatever. You got to shoot a shotgun. You got to shoot a shotgun. I don't really see the big deal here. I mean, I was telling you, I have geese and ducks and all that. And the first time I shot these targets and they're static, I'm going, oh my god, these guys are shooting clays, shooting clays, and they're not moving. They're on stakes. I literally went home and told my buddies, I'm like, yeah, they're shooting clays on stakes, man. What is this? So, but once I started shooting it, I'm like, well, it's not as easy as it looks because you got to be moving over the ground and you got to be loading the shotgun. So if you take that shotgun, you take it away from three gun. If you think about it, it gets a lot easier because of some of the strategy where you have a slug and then you have to load. And then if you're shooting to win, you got to make these shots. And you don't make these shots, then you load that thing. And then no matter how quick you are, you're going to lose time. You're going to lose 2.5 to 4 seconds probably, or maybe more, depending on how many shells you got to stuff in it. So it adds an element because it's dividing your attention. So it adds a big element to the sport. So I think if you took it away, you're going to take a little bit of the experience away of what three gun is, or what it's come to be. But so I'd like to see it stay in there. Has it helped me for work? Not necessarily maybe for the shooting of a shotgun, but there's other tangibles I think that it's helped me at work.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on that one because, on the one hand, like I want the shooting sports to grow, and I think like two gun could be a good way to do that. But I also have this inclination that people not wanting to shoot shotgun is just an excuse not to shoot, period. It's like there's always going to be some excuse where you take away the shotgun. It's like, well, now I don't have the I don't have the ammunition to do it, or that'll get you killed in the streets. Like there's always some excuse, right? And so when UML is like, okay, well, we got two gun division, we have PCC division, like on the surface, I thought like, oh, that's awesome. You're going to get like a ton more people into the game. But then I went and shot the Wyoming Governors match, and I think I went through like 40 rounds of shotgun in like the entire match.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of disappointing in, a major match. And I didn't even get to use my shotgun for like an entire stage. So I struggle with that one.
Yeah, I've come to like it in a match, and I was the same way out there at that match. We flew out, Greg and I flew out together. We were like, man, we have to ration out some pistol ammo here because we shoot that much, and then we had to get really creative on how we were going to carry all the shotgun back. I think the two gun, if that, like, looking at kids and bringing people into the sport, or even an adult that was, on a budget or whatever, a two gun is good because the pistol and rifle are going to be the two biggest things that you need to skill set wise, long range rifle, obviously, and then pistol is that's your toughest gun to learn to shoot. So yeah, if you cut your teeth on that, and then, people were looking to jump in and delve into the shotgun in the three gun world, then fine. If that was a way to bring them in, I don't know how successful that's going to be, with bringing people in, but if it works, I'm all for it because I want to see more people come into the sport and enjoy it and keep this way of life that we love to do and this recreation. But I just don't know yet if that's, like you said, I don't know if it matters. Like if people really want to get into it, they don't care. They're just going to get into it, or the two gun is the way to go.
Yeah. And I wish there was some sort of like data on it, where you could say like objectively, look, two gun, does increase participation in matches, but so far, at that match, I looked at a bunch of people that, if you didn't see them in two gun, they would normally be just shooting tac ops. So it's like, okay, well, so you're hunting a trophy, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I've done it myself, but it didn't really, I didn't see like a lot of new people in two gun in that match. It was all the same people that I had recognized shooting tac ops or limited before. So I don't know. I wish there was data, Rick.
I think maybe at a club level, it would be good because then, a person says, well, I'd like to come out, but I have I have a pistol and I have a rifle, but I don't really have a shotgun. I mean, they might have a shotgun. They don't have a shotgun set up anywhere near for three gun. Then, they could hey, come on out. We got 2-gun matches, once a month. They could come out, start shooting a 2-gun match, and then, hey, if that's the way to hook them and get them into it, then good. Because most people I know, man, like I said, I started out, I just thought the shotgun was like whatever, but actually, I mean, I enjoy a good shotgun stage. I really do. I enjoy the strategy, and it's just fun to blast away with one of those things. One of these days, I'm going to go steal like a guy like Josh Freilic's open gun. I've been wanting to do that forever and just cut loose with one of those things.
Yeah.
It just looks fun.
Yeah, for me, like I started shooting 3-gun because I wanted to get time behind the carbine and then time behind a pistol, and then I just happened to have like an 18-inch pup shotgun, and that became like an ancillary part of it. But it's become one of my favorite parts of the game, so that's why I don't want to see it go away. But to your point there, I got to shoot a Limcat Vepr when I was in Las Vegas that belonged to Scott Green, and holy crap, that is a ton of fun. Like that is so awesome. It's so fast, and you don't have to load it. It's great.
I had to do that yet, but I'm gonna grab a hold of one of those guys, one of these matches, and cut loose one of those.
Yeah. Right on, Rick. Well, last question here before we go, and it's just a final thought or piece of advice. So what can you leave the 3-gun audience with to take away from our talk here today?
I just say, if you're in 3-gun, you're looking to get better, and you have, depending on your goal, if your goal is just to come out and have fun with your buddies and shoot a match, then man, that's awesome. Keeping it in perspective, but if your goal is to, you want to be a top shooter and at the top level, then just expect to have to put in work, like real work. I've heard that term natural talent thrown around, and I've seen guys that definitely have, some natural ability here and there, but I think, having what I've had where I live close to somebody that's really, really good, and seeing the amount of work that they put in, it just those guys are just putting in a ton of work. That's really all it is. So, if that's your goal to get there, have a good plan. Keep thinking about what you need, like real soul searching of what you need to make yourself better. Talk to other people. People can, you can ask me questions anytime. Guys could ask me, because I'll help anybody. Because like I said, I've stalked enough people and stuff. So, but just if that's your goal, man, then just stay with it. Don't give up, and look at it as a journey. Like me, I'm older now, so I said when I first got in, I said, you know what, I'm going to win a national championship in 3 years, and 3 years is come and gone. So I just enjoy the journey. I'm just enjoying the journey. All these great people I'm meeting. I look forward to seeing them all at matches, and I look forward to, like, even Mike Sexton. I love it when he puts up his pre-match stuff on Facebook. Just listen to his old Southern drawl and just some of these folks that you meet. So I'm just enjoying it, and I enjoy figuring it out, and that's the way I look at it. And that's what keeps me moving. So, if I can keep these old knees moving around, then there's no excuse anybody else can. And stay at it. Stay at it. It'll come.
That's a great final thought. Well, Rick, man, this has been so much fun to have you on the show. I really enjoyed getting to hear about your journey and how you break down the game, and of course, stalk people on Facebook. So thanks for being a part of the show, man. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.